welcome to the Norisring and the Porsche Carrera Cup here at this fantastic 2.3 kilometer circuit, which features some 8 turns, 5 of which are left and 3 of which are right. It's a challenging, technical, tight circuit. And the fantastic Porsche Carrera Cup cars are on track right now, ready for their first race of the weekend. 2 races to come over the weekend for the Carrera Cup cars. And a big number of spectators here to enjoy the racing to come from the Carrera Cup. Now, the weather conditions have been extraordinary today, where it's been at some points quite mild and quite warm, and therefore the track has been very, very dry. And then, earlier on, there was a huge downpour. However, the track is dry now. Dennis Olsen has had 4 wins this season, leading the championship by some 24 points. He won Sunday's race 3 weeks ago at the Red Bull Ring, but he also had a P26 finish in Saturday's race in Spielberg after a 30-second penalty because of causing that particular collision. So we turned our attention to qualification for the Norisring. Christopher Zoechling, runner-up in the championship in the Norisring quali for race 1. He ends up P5. So P5 for Christopher Zoechling. Right behind Michael Ammermuller, P4 for today's race. The German is P3 in the championship, 4 points behind Christopher Zoechling. P3 went the way of Thomas Preining, the Conrad Motorsport driver, the best qualifying result in his Carrera Cup career thus far. It was P2 for Nick Yellerly, the 26-year-old, is P4 in the championship. But pole position would go the way of the championship leader, Dennis Olsen. Some 3/10 quicker than Nick Yellerly. And Henrik Skog will be starting from P5. He is the winner of the award of nearest to the wall so far. So there are the cars on the grid. Alex Torriel alongside me then. Top racing driver. And this for these Porsche Carrera Cup cars that you have to wring the neck out of to get the best. It's a very challenging circuit, isn't it? And one that will be a challenge for this man, Dennis Olsen.
Yeah, exactly, Dave. This is a really challenged circuit, really challenged car. So we have all the ingredients to have a really nice race and really interesting race with many overtakes, many defense situation for sure. We'll see what happens with the start. It's always really hard in the start here. My experience from 2015 as a race here, the racetrack gets really tight towards the first corner. So I'm really sure we'll have really nice moments in this race.
I'm sure you're right, and it's one that we've been looking forward to all day long. So going from P3 on the grid is the number 2 driver of car number 2, I should say, Thomas Preining, former single-seater star, who's been elevated into the Carrera Cup and driving for the Conrad Motorsport team. There we can see the Thomas Preining car, and then this man, former single-seater star back in his day, and now very much a star in terms of Porsche racing, and that's Michael Ammermuller. He is a formidable driver, Alex.
Yeah, Michael Ammermuller is a driver with a lot of experience. He knows this car since, I know, 6 years now. Experience racing Carrera Cup and Super Cup. He was also racing the year I raced with. And we have now our friend Patrick Simon.
That's Christopher Zoechling, another really good guy. And we are determined to get Christopher Zoechling alongside us in commentary at some point soon, and he'll be pleased to join us, I'm sure. Super guy. Resident in the UK is Christopher Zoechling. Then we find another very experienced Porsche driver, another experienced driver in lots of brands, it has to be said, Christian Engelhardt, Alex.
Yeah, again, Christian Engelhardt, you can compare Christian Engelhardt to Michael Ammermuller, 2 racing drivers with plenty of experience in Carrera Cup. They've been racing, they know the car since many years, even if this car, this year, you have a new car with no new specification, but it's really similar to the one before.
Yes.
So looking forward to see what they do in this race.
Gabriel Piana, of course, a driver you know quite well in the Carrera Cup. And Gabriel Piana then is going from P7 on the grid.
Yes, you were saying teammates. We are teammates in Black Falcon in the endurance side of the team. P8 we have Henry Skook, the one we saw before he got the award of closest to the wall.
He got that award. So, having been to Hockenheim, Lausitzring and the Red Bull Ring, now it is the turn of the Norisring for the Carrera Cup cars. Many of these drivers, of course, have a dual campaign, don't they? They're also in the Super Cup, Alex.
Yeah, as you said, many of the drivers we have now in the grid, like Dennis Olsen or Amma Müller, they are racing both series, either Carrera Cup and Super Cup. We also saw last race in Red Bull Ring, many of the drivers from Super Cup coming to Carrera Cup to train for the main event. That's why we had a bigger grid. This time is not the case, but as you were saying, many of the drivers are doing both series to keep, let's say, to keep them warm, to keep in the rhythm.
Yes.
Because like we were saying, it's a really tricky car. It's a hard car to drive, and the more you drive, the better you become.
Yes, of course. And there's no discounting how important track time is. And the longer you spend in the car, I think it's fair to say, the better you get. Is that not the case?
Yeah, exactly. This is, like I said, this car is really technical to drive. So the more you drive it, the better you get with it, and the faster you are around the racetrack.
Well, this track provides a challenge like no others that they experience during the course of the season, because it is a very, very tight technical street circuit where the track limits are lineated by concrete and Armco as opposed to white lines. And track limits is something which is a bit of a hot topic in motorsport, Alex Torrill. Here, if you go outside the track limits, you're in trouble, aren't you?
Yeah, it's like this. Norisring, it's only one place where you have issues with track limits. We say it's the inside line of corner 1, which actually you never go on it. So like you're saying, you're totally right. Here, if you are out of the white line, it means you are really close to the wall, if not in the wall.
Yeah, sure.
So you need to take care of this.
So the Project 1 team then all sharing good luck wishes before the start of the race, and of course their hopes and aspirations lay at the moment with Nick Yellerly perhaps going from P2 on the grid, and it's been very interesting to watch Nick Yellerly progress in the Carrera Cup, because another driver with supreme racing experience. But it does take you a little while, doesn't it, to get into the Carrera Cup and to be able to get the very, very best out of these cars.
Yeah, you need experience, you need kilometers. It's like we were saying, it's not easy. And of course, he's a driver with experience, and also into the junior program with Porsche, which always gives you a little bit of a plus to get to know those cars. And he's performing really well till now. It's pretty much with a solid rhythm in every race, solid qualifying. We'll see what it's able to do now. So
Dennis Olsen then, P1. Nick Yellerly that we were just talking about goes from P2 on the grid for the Project 1 team. Then it's Thomas Preining, P3. Michael Ammermuller is P4. Christopher Zochling, P5. Christian Engelhardt, P6. Gabriella Piana goes P7. Henrik Skoog is P8. P9 is Ryan Cullen. And then we see another one of the Project 1 drivers, David Kolkman, who I was speaking to at breakfast this morning. He goes from P10 on the grid. Then we see another Project 1 driver, Larry ten Voorde, who's never raced here at the Norisring before. Wolfgang Triller, Marius Nakan, Carlos Rivas, Wolf Natan, Luca Rattenbacher, Jorn Schmidt-Stade. Before we find Saga, Rakoff and Hauschild bringing up the rear of the grid. We're on the formation lap now of these super Porsche Carrera Cup cars on this 2.3 kilometer track. 27 laps is predicted, some 62.1 kilometers around this circuit. There is one Mr. Franz Conrad from Conrad Motorsport. It's not very often that you see Franz Conrad not smiling. And there the Project 1 team in the pit lane. Track temperature 23.3 degrees, air temperature 19.9. So Dennis Olsen is lined up. When you're a pole-sitting driver, of course, you have to wait for the rest of the pack to come into their grid boxes, which is can be a long moment of anxiety and tension, because you just want to get the race underway. And Dr. Wolfgang Ulrich then from Audi with Franz Conrad Franz himself, a supremely successful driver in his day, and now supremely successful team owner, as the green flag is waved from the marshal at the rear. The lights to the top of the screen on the right-hand side, as you can see, when they extinguish, it will be go. The engine note rises, so does the anticipation. Very good start from Dennis Olsen. What a start from Christopher Zoechling. One to watch there. And Dennis Olsen absolutely side by side with Nick Yellerly, but Nick Yellerly is not going to yield, so it could be Yellerly that goes into turn one ahead, but Zoechling! Whoa, that was close. There was a touch between the two of them, but I think they've got away with it. Zoechling is back to P3 and potentially even P4 now. I don't know whether he's got damage to the front of that car, possibly, but Nick Yellerly is leading this race, and he got Dennis Olsen right at the start, Alex Toril.
Yes, really good start also from Christian Engelhardt, and like you were saying, really on the edge. Christopher Zoechling, which is now battling with Michael Ammermuller, is still side by side. Inside line now for Michael Ammermuller. Engelhardt on the back as an spectator also tries to dive into the inside of Zoechling. Let's see what he's doing the outside of the corner. He gets a little bit of the momentum. Larry Tenforde also in the back of David Kolkman, and Gabriele Piana also straight in the back. He lost a little bit on the start.
So Nick Yellerly leading the race there. Dennis Olsen trying to come back at him now. Overtaking is notoriously difficult here at the Norisring, and Nick Yellerly did the job really well at the start and just got the start ahead of Dennis Olsen and made sure that inside line into this turn that we're looking at now, turn one, was protected. So Nick Yellerly for Project One leads from Conrad Motorsports. Dennis Olsen in P2. P3 is Mikael Ammermuller.
Yeah, we see Larry Tenforde battling with his teammate David Kolkman.
Yes.
In the back, Gabriele Piana taking advantage out of the shoulder assist. Thomas Preining had also quite a bad start. He was P3 and dropped quite a few positions into P11.
So the best start of all coming from Nick Yellerly from P2 on the grid there, as you can see, is that Thomas Preining car in the familiar Conrad Motorsport colours. Yellerly leading from Olsen, Ammermuller, Zoechling, then it's Engelhardt. Ryan Cullen is P6 with Wolf Natan and Wolfgang Triller P13 and 14 in the B category of the Porsche Carrera Cup, because there are two categories. There's the pro and semi-pro drivers in the A category, and then of course, Alex, in the B category are the gentleman drivers, if you like.
Yeah, there are gentleman driver, businessmen, people who do this as a, let's say, hobby.
Yes.
And they come and spend their free weekends on racing on this car, and there is a special classification for them. And now we have Wolfgang Triller leading the classification, followed by Carlos Rivas and Jeffrey Schmidt started on P3, down in the 17th position overall.
So 2 laps of the 27 are done. Nick Yellerly with merely 2 seconds, 2 tenths of a second margin over Dennis Olsen, then, who's desperately going to try and fight back and get that P1 position back. And there you can see Yellerly is defending very well, and in fairness, Dennis Olsen has got to try and find a way around him, and Mikael Ammermuller wants to be in that battle as well. He's currently some 7 tenths down on Dennis Olsen, who is running in P2. Christopher Zoechling, Christian Engelhardt, Ryan Cullen, Henrik Skoog, Larry Tenforde, Gabriele Piana, Thomas Preining, the top 10. Talk us through the start.
This is what I spot. Mikael Ammermuller did a small jump start. He moved a little bit before the lights went on. So now if we see against the replay, that's why we're having this fast and forward. You see he moved a little bit straight before the lights went off. So we'll see if now they get this into investigation.
Certainly nothing yet on our message screen, but once the steward sees that replay, Ammermuller's going to be really fond of you, isn't he? And that was Christopher Zoechling then. It was a daredevil move down the inside, wasn't it?
Yep. Yeah, it was really tight, but he's an experienced driver. He knows what he's doing. He knows where the edge of the car is. And oh, that was close.
Zoechling perhaps now gets that closest to the wall award, doesn't he? Let's look at it from the back here. Oh yes, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Now the problem, if the car is approaching on the right, he will not see anything. But now aerodynamically it's better. He has now less drag on the right side because of the mirror. So yeah, maybe it was a bit intentionally.
Okay.
To get a better drag reduction.
Well, Olsen is certainly being able to stick with the pace that Nick Yellerly has, but Nick Yellerly now posts the fastest lap of 51.572 as Olsen really closes onto his gearbox in braking.
Thomas Preining passing Gabriele Piana in the back of the grid, the middle of the grid.
So Thomas Preining then, whose start was not as good as he would have liked it to be. And Gabriele Piana battling, but Preining for the moment gets the better of him. So Yellowly, if he's got to spend the entire race defending hard against Dennis Olsen because he's not able to get up the road, that's a big, big ask, isn't it? Now, he's got no pressure ahead of him. He's not chasing anyone down. He's got a clear track. But when you're having to drive at least part of the lap, looking in your rearview mirror to see where Olsen is, where he's trying to put that Conrad Motorsport car, that must be very, very difficult, because do you lose some of your focus on nailing every apex, thinking about where that car behind is going to put itself?
Yeah, it is. It's really hard, because you need to keep driving, of course, looking at the front, but you need to see also what's doing the guy in the back, and where is he going? He's going to get left, right, and is he maybe overshooting the corner and hitting you? It's many things it can happen, and you need to avoid. So yeah, for sure he's driving with the head looking, with the eyes looking at the front, but also up, in some moments also looking to the left, right, up to the mirrors to say where is he coming? Is he closer? Is he farther away? Also, especially because this year the drivers no radio communication with the teams.
Sure.
It's everything up to you. It's everything down to the driver. So they are not alone on the racetrack.
So Yellowly leads, and we're watching the battle in the B category, which Wolfgang Triller at the moment is ahead of Carlos Rivas. It's P13 and 14 in the race overall. So Wolfgang Triller then ahead of Carlos Rivas. Wolf Natan is the third driver in that B battle. He's actually down in P16 in the race overall. And there you can see the margin between Wolfgang Triller and Carlos Rivas then, as the graphics on screen indicate. And under investigation for jump start are two cars, actually.
Muller and Zögling.
Well, I did wonder about Zögling, because he dived through the middle, didn't he? And he seemed to have the ability to do so. And I picked that one up in about the same fashion as you picked up the Mikael Ammermuller one. There we are, 1-1 now. We're drawing, I think. We've got a yellow flag somewhere. Oh, it disappears momentarily as we continue to watch this battle going on then. And of course we have the number 3 car of Luca Rettenbacher up against the wall. And Luca Rettenbacher on the inside of Carlos Rivas now. And Rettenbacher does go through, get ever so close to the wall on the exit of the Scholler-S. Luca Rettenbacher gets that job done and moves up another place ahead of Carlos Rivas. So Rettenbacher now finds himself P14. Yellowly has extended his margin over Dennis Olsen by just a couple of tenths as we've been watching that battle. So Nick Yellowly doing a good job out front, and Dennis Olsen continuing to chase him down. But this has been a good battle going on here, and now joining into that battle is Wolf Natan. So here it is again, and it's not one of the traditional places to overtake, is it, Alex Torrell?
No, it's just a place where you overtake in case the driver in front made a mistake out of corner 1.
Right.
And it's really clear you are on the inside line, and you just let the speed roll through. When we see now, we have a time penalty of 10 seconds for Ammermuller, and also the same time penalty, 10 seconds for Christopher Zögling due to the jump start we saw at the beginning.
Oh.
So they will add at the end of the race, when they finish, they will add 10 seconds to their race time, and this will decide the final classification.
So the P3 and the P4 that Ammermuller and Zögling are enjoying at the moment probably will not be the case, will it?
Yeah, the moment if you will finish the race now, which still have 17 laps to go, they will be down to P13, 14 more or less.
So there is Mikael Ammermuller, who on track is P3, but bear in mind he has that...
Oh, he has a drive-through penalty.
Well, this is... we've got drive-through penalty on the screen, but actually on our timing screen it says a 10-second time penalty.
We see both cars on the right and on the left having this small jump on the start, which of course is costing. But like you were saying, we had just drive-through penalty, but we have the 10-second.
But it did say on screen a drive-through penalty. Now, a drive-through penalty is going to cost you more than a 10-second penalty,
course,
isn't it?
Of course. I think I would say we should stick to what is on the information board in time message we have,
which is 10-second time penalty.
Which is 10 seconds is coming straight from race direction.
Well, we'll run with that for the time being as Dennis Olsen once again turns the wick up on Nick Yellerly.
Putting a little bit of pressure on Nick Yellerly, preparing the last corner, trying to get a good exit out of it to maybe try overtaking Manu. I think it's not that close yet. Maybe let show his nose. Not yet. Outside the line. No.
Yellerly sticks his elbows out as he's very entitled to do, and denies the opportunity for Dennis Olsen to come by on that occasion. So close to the wall for both of them. Nick Yellerly, Dennis Olsen, then P1 and P2 that we're watching at the moment. The P3 and P4 drivers on track. It's academic because it's not P3 and P4 because they have got a 10-second time penalty that will be added to their time at the end of the race, which will change the classification to benefit Engelhardt and Cullen. Here comes Dennis Olsen now, Alex.
Yeah, it's closer than ever. We already saw the outside line, inside line. Braking, both on the brake, he goes on the outside. Nick Yellerly made the car wide, tried to switch back, but it will not work. But this time was closer than ever. So let's see if, I think we might see some more tries in the next laps.
So Dennis Olsen then has got the bit between his teeth now to try and wrestle away that P1 position from Nick Yellerly, who had a fantastic start and has led the race from the very start. And is being hounded all the way, though, by Dennis Olsen, who is currently P2. There's just a 10th between the two of them. It's so very close between these two Carrera Cup stars. Nick Yellerly for Project One. And then it's Dennis Olsen, of course, the Porsche Junior for Conrad Motorsport as they head up towards the Grundig turn once again. Olsen desperately wants to try and dive up the inside, but Nick Yellerly just makes the car wide enough to prevent that opportunity to Olsen to have a look at the inside, which is the preferred place to try and make the overtake through turn number one. Through the Scholler S's they come now. Cars are virtually welded together, aren't they? They are so close. P3 on track is Mikael Ammermuller. Christopher Zoechling being chased down hard now by Christian Engelhardt.
Oh, we see some lock tires from Nick Yellerly, feeling the pressure. Could maybe give the chance to Dennis Olsen to get closer. This, like you say, so many laps you are leading the race, so many laps in the front that at some point it's not maybe physically but mentally it's hard to keep this rhythm, this pressure on. And then you start to have these small mistakes. I'm locking here, locking there, which is allowing the diver behind you to get to take advantage. So it's really hard.
That will be part of what Dennis Olsen is trying to do, though, won't it?
Of course,
keep the pressure on.
I mean, in the situation they are now with a good gap to Mikael Ammermuller, being in the situation of Dennis Olsen is the best. You have now still 12 laps to go. Look, we see now, for example, Yellerly going really wide, almost touching the wall. Now Dennis to put, let's say, the top of the cake is start to flashing you. So
does that ever do any good?
No. I mean, you are used to when you race all the Carrera Cup and you are used like Nick or Dennis to race Carrera Cup, Super Cup. You are used this flashing thing. So there is a moment where you don't really notice much, but it's always something else, like saying, hey, I'm here, I'm breathing on your neck, and I want to go by. So again, corner one on the outside, one on the inside defending. Denies the position. But as I was saying, it's not easy. It's really hard situation. The point where Dennis Olsen is, the second position, is the most comfortable one because you can manage how much pressure you put in the P1 guy. You can keep a little bit your tires. You can, let's say, be a spectator, a little bit more of a spectator of the situation, rather than Nick that he has to look in for the front, for the rear.
Olsen around the outside. Would like to get underneath the car now, but it's off the exit of this turn, isn't it, Alex, where you have to start setting up the overtake for turn 1, am I right?
Yeah, exactly. This is the most important thing. You need to be really good on the exit of the last corner so you can have a chance to dive into the inside or outside, like we see now in corner 1. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. That was tight, huh?
There was contact between the two of them, but healthy respect between the two of them as well, I think, Alex, wasn't there?
I would not say respect, it was some more that was close to happen. We see Dennis driving quite a lot too much to the inside, not leaving a lot of room to Nick Jellily.
But it could have been much worse. That's why I'm saying about the respect, because if Jellily hadn't dived out of that there, he would have for sure had Olsen around, wouldn't he?
Yeah, of course, of course. So I would say a little bit of luck, well handling from Dennis Olsen, but also it's fair to say from my point of view, maybe Olsen dived too quick to the inside line and didn't let too much room to Nick Jellily because Nick Jellily was kind of going. So now we see the right penalty.
Yeah, so Ammermuller, who's currently P3, gets that 10-second time penalty added to his finish time for that jump start, and we assume that Christopher Zoechling is going to receive the same. And interestingly, of course, those two are both together. So the Olsen-Jellily fight will continue for another few laps. In the meantime, there is Carlos Rivas. And right alongside Carlos Rivas is the Marius Naken car. And behind them is the Luca Rettenbacher machine.
Part Protector 1 now for Dennis Olsen, so he's not giving up.
No.
He wants this first place. 2/10 difference between him and Nick Jellily, so we are back to where we were a few seconds ago.
So there, the number 14 car that we watched there of Marius Naken then, as they cross the timing line. Carlos Rivas for the Black Falcon team is one of the B category drivers. Nick Jellily and Dennis Olsen continuing to fight at the front, and that fight got ever so fraught just a moment or two ago. Marius Naken now coming under some pressure from Luca Rettenbacher as some debris, and that's right on the start-finish line, isn't it? You only want to pick that up, and that's a puncture, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's the front right part of the bumper from Carlos Rivas. But I think it's not in a really dangerous place. We see, both.
Well, that's Stefan Raykopf and the number 12 car of Jorn Schmidt-Stade.
Cars of Zita Pedrosa having some hard moment. We'll see now these two guys keeping the rhythm of attacking. One attacking, the other defending.
This has been extraordinary because it's been lap after lap after lap, as you know, there's been hardly anything between them, has there? And Olsen doesn't really have too many options, does he? You know, there are only a number of places where you can try and overtake here, and by Jiminy, he really, really has tried. But Nick Jellily has been stoic in his defense, and quite rightly so. Car, the back end just bounces around on the exit of that turn. It's particularly bumpy here at the Norisring as well, isn't it, Alex?
Yeah, no, it's a really, really bumpy racetrack. And we see these cars, the Porsches, quite a little bit heavy, and they have quite a little bit of soft suspension, so you can see this bouncing quite easily because of the bumps. We'll see now, for example, how they are really bouncing on the brakes, and again defending Nick Jellily, making that car as wide as possible, or some power oversteer. Better traction from Dennis Olsen out of the corner, so we'll see now if Dennis Olsen can dive to the inside. Of course, Nick Jellily defends the position. Really, really close. Not that it happens in a dramatic situation like before. Dennis takes the fastest line, the outside line. Nick stays on the inside. Push. Oh, no, the switchback, loft tap. You like the loft taps, huh?
Well, This is great racing between the two of them, and of course we're reaching the closing stages of the race, so tyre degradation is going to be at its greatest now, isn't it? So are both of those drivers really going to have to battle with tyres that are offering less grip than at the beginning of the race, Alex?
Exactly. We saw that's why we are seeing more and more often these small lockups when they are approaching the corners. This also because the tire is getting older, so it's not the same level of grip that we had at the beginning of the race.
Well, this is a fascinating fight, which has been great for us to talk about. It's probably been immensely frustrating for Dennis Olsen, because whatever he has tried, and there you can see Franz Conrad shaking his head, because whatever Dennis Olsen has tried, for the moment, up until this point, Nick Yellerly has had it covered, hasn't he? So it's been, you know, great driving from the two of them, and you have to share equal applause for both of them for lap after lap after lap to continue this extraordinary battle between the two of them. Interestingly, as they are continuing to fight, of course, Michael Ammermuller is significantly quicker, but Michael Ammermuller is going to have a 10-second time penalty. The incident between Jorn Schmidt-Stade and the number 33 car of Stefan Rakoff is under investigation. Not under investigation at the moment is Nick Yellerly for the race lead, because Dennis Olsen is not quite as close to him on this lap as he has been previously. Some 4/10 the margin now. Well, 4/10 is hardly enough for Nick Yellerly to be able to breathe, truthfully, because Yellerly, he has not been able to break away from Dennis Olsen. The two of them have both been lapping within 1/100ths of each other in terms of lap time. And they've been so close together. David Coltman is chasing down Thomas Preining. It's P9 and P10 respectively for Preining and David Coltman at the moment. David Coltman, of course, one of the Project One drivers. Thomas Preining, that of Conrad Motorsport. And behind them is the number 20 car, the Henrik Skog car for Race Union Huber Racing. So really are into the final stages of this Porsche Carrera Cup race now. The sun shining in the early evening here at the Norisring.
Engelhardt putting some pressure into Christopher Söcklin, but it's not really needed to go for it, because he will get anyway the 10 seconds penalty.
But of course, without this radio transmission,
he doesn't know that.
He doesn't
know that.
So of course he will continue to push. And there is Christopher Söcklin in the number 15 car, Christian Engelhardt in the number 5 car. This is the
they're still on the on it.
That was more than a love tap, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's a hate tap.
Okay. So Yellerly then has still shown a clean pair of heels to Dennis Olsen. The margin between them is some 3/10. We are on the final lap. Nick Yellerly, to be fair to him, really deserves to take what will be his first win in the Carrera Cup for 2017. Dennis Olsen, of course, has had, I think I'm right in saying, 4 wins thus far. And to bank points sometimes for a P2 is better than to go all out and bust for P1, isn't it? Isn't that the sensible approach? Nick Yellerly does take the win from Dennis Olsen, P2. Michael Ammermuller crosses the line P3, but will be relegated. So too will Christopher Söcklin. That will uplift Christian Engelhardt, Ryan Cullen, also Larry ten Voorde, Gabriel Piana, Thomas Preining, David Coltman and Henrik Skog as well. And we'll give you the confirmation of the classification once all the penalties have been applied, as the rest of the drivers cross the timing line here at the Norisring circuit. That, well, I think it must be probably the closest P1, P2 battle that I've seen, because it raged for the entire race, Alex Torrell.
Yeah, you're right, Dave. They've been nose to tail the whole race, but brilliant drive from Nick Yellerly, defending really well from Dennis Olsen. They had also this small situation. Plenty of emotions in Project One. Happy days for them.
Well, it was. I mean, you know, to be fair, as a racing driver, of course, it's all about attacking. It's all about overtaking. It's all about, you know, taking victory. But when this man, Nick Yellerly, has had to spend the entire race defending. Whoa, extraordinary. Nick Yellerly takes the win from Dennis Olsen. Then it's Christian Engelhardt elevated to P3 before Ryan Cullen, Larry Tenvoorde, Gabriel Piana, Mikael Ammermuller is at P7, Thomas Preining P8, David Kolkman P9, and Christopher Zoechling gets relegated to P10, and that's all because of that jump start, and both Ammermuller and Zoechling getting a 10-second penalty.
Exactly, Dave. This is what we saw, and now it's in the classification. So
Wolfgang Triller will take the win in the B category, and Yellerly is pretty happy to have taken that win. Congratulations all round. And that's nice to see. Handshake from Dennis Olsen. And the drivers will be heading up to the podium. Always 2 podiums with the Porsche Carrera Cup. And Nick Yellerly is the race winner. And there he is, taking the checkered flag, and takes the win in the Carrera Cup. Checkered flag being waved almost as flamboyantly as the holder's hair. And Franz Conrad there. Very rarely you don't see Franz Conrad smiling. And he was continuing to smile at that point as well.
well, like you were saying, it's good for Dennis Olsen. P2 again, back in the points, back to be in the top position, and it's playing everything good for his championship situation. At some point you cannot always win, but you need to be also regular. You have to be always in the top positions.
When you're a Porsche Junior, as indeed Dennis is it not something that Porsche will be looking at as well? How you conduct yourself in that position? Do you know what I mean? When you realise to perhaps dive out of that battle and to be content and accept the points and bag the points.
Yeah, of course, it's everything. It's a full package. You need to behave inside the track, outside the track. You need to also be good, let's say, with the media. With it's a full thing that they look at it, not only at the driving, not only at the results, which at the end of the day are the important thing, because you need to be fast, but as well you need to be good in other many aspects.
The point I'm trying to make is that as we look at the super slow-mos of the top three, Christian Engelhardt taking P3, Dennis Olsen taking P2, and of course Nick Yellerly taking P1, is that, you know, just sometimes, you know, for Dennis Olsen probably to have won that race, he would have had to go a little bit beyond.
Yeah.
And it might have ended up with him taking the lead of the race and winning the race, but equally it could have ended up with him wrecking the car into the barriers.
Yeah, exactly. He already had a 0 and do not finish in Red Bull Ring in the last race. So I mean, you cannot give away many do not finish, and especially if in a situation like this, if you are everything under control and comfortable at P2, it's also worth.
Well, the drivers will be heading up to the podium momentarily.
My phone was ringing again.
Torrell's phone is going. Dinner is ready now.
Yeah. Almost.
I have to say, for someone who is a very, very successful racing driver, and I'm privileged to have him alongside me here in the commentary booth, and a svelte figure as well, you would not believe just how much he eats. It's infuriating, truthfully, how he can maintain such a extraordinary thin appearance for somebody that can shovel as much food into him as he does. Sorry, I'm being a little bit disrespectful to you, Alex. You'll tell me that that's what makes you a race winner, is you stock up on field, don't you? Yeah. That's it. I'm in for a real telling off now. Here is a replay once again of Nick Yellerly taking the checkered flag.
You will get it back.
I'm sure. With interest, I don't doubt. Nick Yellerly then race winner. And we're just awaiting the podium, which cannot be far away. It's not the work of a moment to get from the pit lane to the podium here. Richard there congratulating Nick Yellerly. Here he is out onto the podium. Now, Nick Yellerly at Zandvoort last year was in the commentary box with me. Dennis Olsen and Christian Engelhardt, and fantastic national anthem we're about to hear. Presentations about to be made. P1 trophy goes the way of Nick Yellerly for Project One Motorsport. At last, Nick, well done. P2 goes the way of the Porsche Junior and current points championship leader by some margin. That, of course, is Dennis Olsen. Franz Conrad. He's had some success through his hands, hasn't he? Christian Engelhardt, who inherited P3 by dint of Mikael Ammermuller and Christopher Zoechling taking penalties. Alex Torrell.
Yeah, exactly. We saw this small jump start they both had at the beginning of the race, and of course it's in the reglement, it's in the regulations. You get a jump start, you get a penalty.
Now it should be explained, it's not only line of sight that on which a jump start is measured. There are sensors, aren't there?
Yeah, you have sensors,
data,
you have the video sensors, you have the video. It's many today. The technology, it's so wide. You have the onboard cameras of the drivers and the data, so it's really easy to see for the race direction to see when someone has made a jump start.
So there the champagne is sprayed up there on the top step of the podium. This for the Porsche Carrera Cup, and Nick Yellerly then taking the win. In the B category, Wolfgang Triller, Carlos Rivas and Wolf Natan, the 1, 2, 3. They pose for the photographs. And there we have it, done and dusted, Carrera Cup. Patrick Simon wishes us a kiss goodbye. We'll see you for race 2 tomorrow.
Rang 2, die beiden haben punktgleich die Meisterschaft angeführt. Bevor es zur Endung des G-Bereich. Lettlaufen Carlos Riemer. Und Thomas